It just worked quite easily. The way it works is that I have some song ideas, like a part of a song that I present to Mags, and then he responds to that in different ways. Sometimes he will write sections of the song that fit what I've written. Other times he will completely rip what I've done to pieces and make something very different out of it. So it's an interesting process, and painful in a positive way, I think. I don't mind that, to be honest. Because I don't really. It's easy to be very protective about your work. I think that's certainly a double-edged sword. You need to protect things so that something really good can actually come to life. But at the same time, you're dealing with creativity and inputs that you shouldn't really control too much. In this case, with this album, we were fortunate in the sense that there were 5 or 6 producers that we would like to work with that also responded. But our problem this time around was that we had a very tough time schedule. So if we were to finish an album by this time, by now, the only way we saw that could happen was if we let several producers work parallel in different units, at the same time, and then build an album, hopefully, that we could tie together towards the end. That would be the only way that we could finish production in time, basically. So that's why we went in all these directions, because these guys and these teams were all interesting from different points of view. We just didn't have time to say that you're the one, and because then we would have been in the middle of producing. It takes very good planning, but even if you plan it well, it doesn't really happen the way you you think. It costs a lot more. It's a very expensive way of doing it, because you got 5 studios booked, maybe, and but that doesn't mean 5 times the recording cost, because you're not producing a whole record 5 times. This was also something that worked because the different producer teams were interested in not really the same songs. So the balance was quite fortunate, but some overlappings have obviously happened. So that's why it is an expensive way of doing it. And at the end of the day, it's the way we did it this time around. I don't know that we will do this again. The whole album is still so fresh that I haven't even heard the running order of the songs. So I haven't heard the sequence of the album yet myself. So now is a period for us to sit back a little and absorb the album ourselves. There are moments that are great, and there are a lot of moments that are just shite, because you sit and wait for things to work. You wait for technical things to function the way they're meant to. You're waiting for somebody to come with new equipment because the one you have is broken down. And just, studio life has to do with pain. I think all our albums are aha sounds and our developments in our career. And we keep redefining who we are in that sense. This album, I think, also plays on, there is a spirit on this album that I think people know as aha. I think there are elements on this album that are that have certainly a link to some of the things in the past. I certainly feel that. It's not something that we've aimed for, but that's the way it comes out. I think the single, Forever Not Yours, I think it's kind of a classic aha song in a sense. It has elements that you would recognize as aha. And that's also been commented on by a number of people already. It's been reviewed in Norway by press there, and that was their instant comment, that, you know, which I understand. I think it's that's not a good or a bad thing. That's just a fact. That this time around, that's what you get. The question always is whether it's a good song or not. That's what matters. Yeah, we had to get lost, basically, at that point. We needed a break. We needed to just get away and do other things, respond to other things in life in general, in anything. And we should, I think, have done it before, even. It would have benefited everybody. But it was certainly necessary then, and they've been very, very productive and forming years, certainly. But definitely for me, for the others too, I think. It's something that's in the making. It's very much a cake that's being baked. You know, it's not done yet. It's the start of something, and we don't really know where it'll go yet. So the fact that it's a lot of lawlessness is following with it is also natural, because it's a different field, and it needs a different experience, really. It needs different rules, and they're not set yet. So I think it's both interesting, it's destructive, obviously for the industry, the way the industry is shaped. But the industry today is based on the structure before internet. So it's destructive for that, and that will basically harm everybody, because it hurts the industry, and the industry doesn't have the money to just throw them out, you know. Nobody really does. So it has consequences that people don't necessarily feel yet, but they are there, and they will be apparent. But that's they're consequences that society in general will have to pay over time. In the beginning, the industry itself pays it, and the artists to an extent, but that's not so important. Not the artists' aspect of it. It's more dangerous for the industry itself. That's the negative side. On the positive side, there is a change there that I think has a lot of healthy aspects as well. A lot of new things are coming out. You're shaking a very stale building at its foundation, which also is a healthy process, not only destructive. The fact that it's kind of, there's an element of rock and roll attitude to the whole thing is also appealing, you know. I'm not really worried about it. I've never really been. I think it's interesting to see where it's going to go. I think it'll find its form, you know. Yeah, it's there's a lot of songs, and I was taking a break after the first solo album because the whole recording industry was completely out of balance at that point, and I didn't want to do anything at that time, which was like 90, 96, 97, 98. And then when I was getting ready to, and I was starting to see structures, in a sense, that I would believe in terms of companies that I would think we could do something together, you know, because you need a company to do this, and all the big companies were in trouble. A lot of strange things going on, and changes, and for artists it was a very hard time to get anything done in a good way, in the way that you would want it to. Certainly when you have experience, you know. So I avoided it those years, and then I was ready to start doing things. then the Aha thing came along and was starting to look more and more interesting to do, and I ended up on this train again. So after this album, I'm not sure when I will start recording of my own stuff, but probably bit by bit in the in the time to come now, when there are openings. When it'll come out depends much on when it's right to do it, really, from Aha's point of view as well. I would take with me enough chlorophyll generating organisms, I think.
Some orchids maybe?
Possibly, but certainly fungi, and the basic. I would take water, marine water, and plankton, and I would be doing quite well, actually. And I would take one mechanical tool, and I don't know which yet. I need to think of that.